and welcome to JRock's Babylon. I am your host, JRock Houston, and we got with us my good friend Bobby Jensen, the lead singer, guitarist from the band The Dead Cowboys. Now, Bobby, we are here today because you guys are doing a trilogy type of video, kind of like what Guns N' Roses did back on the Use Your Illusion album. Now, the latest one to drop, which dropped about 2 weeks ago, is from a song, The Devil You Know. Now, what can you tell us about the song and the video in particular?
Well, The Devil You Know is really cool, but it's actually a 5-part video thing.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
so The Devil You Know, where are we at? I think that's the second installment. The
Yeah, yeah.
first one was the lake where the cowboys rob the train and kill everybody, and then they head to town. So The Devil You Know is where they go into town and they start to raise havoc, and
Okay.
they kill the preacher's family, and he sells his soul to the devil. And this is where he's doing his negotiation with the devil so that he can go after these ultra psycho spirited cowboys to get
Yeah,
his revenge.
that's a real cool thing. That's a thing over the years. I mean, throughout, I think, everybody's life, that you always hear it like in rock songs, like you even go back to like a song like talking about selling your soul to the devil, to make it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of story. So talk a little bit about why you thought that'd be a cool kind of concept.
Well, like I mentioned before, we just the videos kind of fell into place when I was talking to Andy, who's done all the
Videos.
uh, the artwork for him. And it was like the songs and the story weren't written for this. It just happened.
Yeah.
So they all fell into place. So The Devil You Know isn't even on the album. It's a bonus track that's
Wow.
that's that's online. And I wrote it a couple years ago on Christmas morning. And how funny is that? It's
Yeah,
Christmas.
yeah,
I'm writing a song about selling your soul to the devil. So I'm
yeah.
having my coffee and my normal kind of just wake up and what
Yeah.
have you. And I was flipping channels, and I forget like
What it
what
was.
movie TV show was on, but it was like something like Pirates on Horseback or something like that.
Okay.
And it was really, really old. Or no, it might have been Hellbound Train, but one of those things. And I started thinking, man, that's a cool name. And it was an old movie from like the 40s or 50s.
Yeah.
So I Googled old Western films from the 30s to the 50s.
Wow.
And these titles came up like Pirates on Horseback, Hellbound Train, uh, things like that. So I started writing those down because I thought those are cool names for songs.
Yeah.
And and I was thinking, well, the lake is kind of a hellbound train. So I grabbed my guitar, and the funny thing is, I just kind of put the words down, and I normally, when I'm coming up with ideas, just hit record on my phone and try to capture the idea so I
Sure.
can remember it later. And I just started playing some chords, and I started singing the titles to the songs and then put my own thing into them. And that's actually what you're listening to, is that the invention of the song is the final of the song. So when
I
you're
love
listening to
that.
that,
It's so raw.
it was made up on the spot, and
Wow.
I didn't change a thing. The only thing I did was just add a little compression to it or something, but you can hear my fish tank in the background if you really listen close. But I tried to re-record it and it didn't have the same feel. And I thought I have to just leave this alone and let it be.
Yeah,
And
it's got
that's
that real authenticity that you're talking about. Being a huge Kiss fan myself, I've heard Gene Simmons talk over years about the way he writes songs, which is kind of not your typical. Like he would talk about a lot of times before he even knows what the song is about or has an idea, he comes up with the song title, and then he based everything around the title.
yeah,
That's how he comes up
yeah.
with it.
I didn't even have a name for the song. I didn't write down The Devil You Know.
Yeah.
I just started singing Terror in a Texas Town because that's a movie,
Yeah.
Pirates on Horseback. And I just played it and just said The Devil You Know in the song. I was like, and when
Yeah.
I got done with it, I was like, holy shit, that thing just wrote itself. That's
And
cool
then,
when,
yeah,
you
and then
know,
I was watching the video, and one of the lyrics that kind of crosses this screen, which is kind of cool. It leaves you with this great imagery. It says, kind of as a video is coming to an end, it's got a picture of a skull on the cover, and it says, "Who he was, you cannot tell."
yeah,
And I love
yeah.
that. It's like, yeah, yeah.
Who he was, you can't tell because now he's gone from this total law-abiding, holy family man to just a mass murdering son of a bitch, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and obviously the band, being called Dead Cowboys, and you got this Western kind of cowboy thing going through the videos, which I am sure, correct me if I'm wrong, you must have always been kind of had a love for like old Westerns and cowboys and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, as I mentioned in other things, my dad was from the hills of Tennessee and a gunsmith, and my mom was a city mouse, but our house was very much my dad was into westerns and there were guns everywhere, so we watched that stuff, and I was always just into story songs like Eastbound and Down or even Iron Maiden Run to the Hills or
Yeah,
Wanted Man. Songs like those always appealed to me because I could just envision this cowboy stuff, and I think there isn't too many people or aren't too many people who are flipping channels and come across the show Tombstone, and no
yeah.
matter where it is in the film, they'll just leave it.
And,
you know?
there were others obviously before John Bon Jovi, but a lot of people, kind of a modern day kind of rock and roll cowboy. He might have been at one point, especially you go back to like Wanted Dead or Alive. I mean, it had that Western kind of theme, and I'm glad you brought up Rat and their song
Wanted
Wanted Man,
Man.
because if you watch, that's not really apparent until you watch the video, but they're on horseback, this kind of you know hair band from LA, coming out of 1984,
Yeah.
and then you watch this video off a debut album, and it's like, man, they're kind of doing the cowboy thing. You would not really associate that with Rat, but it fit for the video, and it was so cool.
Well, but you know how I've always explained it's just kind of heavy Western because it's metal with Western themed lyrics and stuff. One of my favorite bands in the world is Wasp, and Blind in Texas
Oh yeah, I love that.
is a perfect heavy Western tune, and we do it in the show. We have pedal steel and fiddle through amps, and we rock the shit out of that. And
You're
it's
really
like,
influenced by that stuff, Bobby. It's obvious, and I mean, it's so true. I mean, that is a song that I have totally forgotten about, "Blind in Texas," but it's probably my all-time favorite Wasp songs. I remember when it came out in '85, seeing the video on Headbangers Ball, and Blackie Lawless. If you know anything about Wasp, people kind of think that he is Wasp. He's a frontman, the main lyricist, like you, but you know. Like you, I totally forgot that. Yeah, he's wearing a cowboy hat in that, but when you think of Wasp, you don't really think of cowboy, but he really captured it in that.
yeah, yeah, and even like Iron Maiden Run to the Hills, that's all about the cowboys and Indians battles.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's such a cool song. It's you know
And you brought up like how you looked up a lot of the old westerns from the 30s and the 50s. That's what I call, kind of a classic era of that. They don't really make stuff like that anymore. But I was just kind of curious.
and
Did you
kind
ever
of thank and thank
like
God,
that?
kind of.
Yeah, you have a collection of these movies. Like, do you collect that stuff, or you just check it out online?
No, no. Well, I grew up in a time when people had VHS tapes and DVDs, so
Yeah,
those things were around. But when I grew up and watched TV, it was the Dukes of Hazzard and
yeah.
Grizzly Adams, Jeremiah
Good for Hazard.
Johnson.
People totally forgot that. I mean, even like look at something like Daisy Dukes. Those Daisy Duke shorts. Those really didn't exist until that show.
Yeah,
It's kind of
that's how they
created a
got the
fashion.
name.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and you look at someone like Waylon Jennings,
yeah,
you know, so many people go, well, he's a great country singer. Well, he's actually rock and roll. He was Buddy Holly's guitar player, and him and Willie and Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis and Johnny
yeah.
Cash were all rock stars.
Even Elvis Presley had some country stuff, and like it's interesting the cross section of your influences, and it's all coming through this kind of love of the cowboy, the western, and I mean, like you said, everybody from Elvis Presley to Waylon Jennings. I mean, that's why I think you write the way you do, Bobby, because look at this cross section of influences you have.
Yeah, well, it was Kiss first,
Yeah, yeah.
Well, actually, it was Jim Croce first. And then when I was like 4 or 5, I was handed the first Kiss album.
Wow.
And when I heard that, and just stared at the album cover. I'm just 5. I don't get the
Yeah,
world,
yeah,
but I knew I'm going to do that. That's the coolest thing ever. And then just remained a Kiss were like the gods, and
sure.
everything was compared after that. So it was really tough for me to even want to listen to other bands.
Yeah,
So I'm more influenced by the TV shows and the lifestyle that I grew up in, doing motocross or going to our family farm in the summertime, and Evil Knievel and Smokey and the Bandit were more of an influence than a lot of the music I listened to, because I was really only listening to Kiss, and I thought, how cool would it be if you put Kiss and Waylon Jennings in a blender
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and, and come up with something,
I
And
think that's
that's,
what the Dead Cowboys is. I mean,
yeah, yeah. So that's why Bobby Jensen and the Dead Cowboys exists, because that's, I had to throw them in the blender and see what would come out.
and let me ask you, Bobby, when you were trying to get the band going, did you come across anybody try to kind of convince you, hey, man, your songs are good, we love the music, but I don't know about this, rock and roll cowboy. Anybody try to ever discourage you from, going with that?
No, no, and I have a really hard time listening to people anyway.
Yeah,
I've been a creative person my whole life, so I write for me,
yeah,
because I always think, as much as I want to play Madison Square Garden, I might not ever get anything. So it should at least just please me.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so I write stuff that I want to listen to. And if somebody else likes it, that's great. And so when I did this album, I didn't even have a band together. I
Wow.
just started writing the songs, and I was actually working on an Alice Cooper tribute album for Alice's teen centers, and had some down studio time and started just using that time to record ideas. And it turned into an album. And a few of the people who played on it said, you should throw a band together and do this. And
So the Alice Cooper project, did that ever get released, or is that something you're still working on?
no, it's still kind of sitting there, but I have Bruce Kulick on it, Tammy Down, a bunch of other people. So it's pretty cool.
I can't wait to see that. I encourage you to keep up with that too, because I think that can only, if that was to come out, that only push kind of the Dead Cowboys even, you know, further out there. I think, see, that's the thing. You got this authenticity that, like you said, some people are just kind of in it to chase trends, and well, I don't hear a commercial sounding Radiohead. Go back and write something, but you write from the heart. You write from stuff you believe in. I think that's why it comes across as so authentic. And also, when you listen to Dead Cowboys, I can honestly say, which I think is why there's so much mass appeal for what you do. It doesn't sound like anybody else. You got your own thing going.
Yeah. Yeah, there isn't anybody doing what we're doing. There might be a few people. I've run across things that are similar in a way, other bands and stuff, but it's not this.
See,
So,
like I can say because I'm a huge Kiss fan myself growing up. I mean, Kiss was it. Kiss was number one for me, and I enjoyed every single era of the band, makeup, non-makeup, but because they were
yeah.
just over the top and huge at what they do. The Dead Cowboys, like I said, I can kind of see now that you're a Kiss fan and you've taken your love for Kiss and how they inspired you, and you turned it into this rock and roll cowboy thing, your love of westerns, and you
Yeah.
combined it.
Yeah, and we build the show around it because, like, you probably heard Alice Cooper say in
Uh,
interviews before that, they talk about his props and everything. It's like, the truth is, none of the props and none of the videos and nothing matters if the song is shit.
yeah, yeah.
So so we build the show around the great songs, and some songs aren't on the record because they didn't really match the level. But most everything that I wrote for this album all have that similar Western feel. And the next album is more into the swamp and the mountains of Tennessee, the southern part of Tennessee. So
I love,
that's
yeah. Yeah, I
That's
love
going to be a whole different
that.
thing. That's about bootleggers and
Wow.
shit like that. So
So you're still you're still promoting the current album, but this new album, have you started recording it? Where are you with that?
yeah, yeah, there's a lot of it's done, and we're hoping for a fall release.
Oh, that'd be fun.
So as these videos are rolling out, they're gonna butt right up to that album.
In
So
fact, Bobby, let's share with people what's going on currently with the Dead Cowboys. Talking about this video series you're currently working. You told me the next video is ready to roll out on Monday, and we're going to have you come back for a third installment of the interview to talk about that specifically. But talk about the next video that's going to come out Monday.
well, it's the Demon Desperado, and that's now the preacher. The creature was the preacher, a horrific double feature that
Wow.
with the
Yeah.
terror, the fear of God, you know. And
Yeah.
so he baptized the devil's herd with his unearthly cattle prod.
I love
So, you
that.
know, he's this son of a bitch is
Yeah, in fact,
he's
Bobby, you just reminded me of another fun thing I used to love doing as a kid. Not just going to the movies, but going to the drive-in movie. And back in the day when I was a kid, um, they used to have what was called the double feature.
yeah,
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 yeah. He's in a horrific double feature. He was the preacher and now he's the world's deadliest demon, you know, or the universe's.
yeah, yeah.
So, and he's going to become the bad guy.
Wow, wow. I love now. I was curious because you're such a fan of westerns. I don't know if it was before your time, but did you ever find yourself watching Bonanza? Reruns of that back in the day.
Yeah, yeah, because my dad and my brothers are all older. You know, my brothers are older. Obviously, my dad was, but you know, my brothers were older, and they're 10 and 15 years older. So I was very much watching Gunsmoke and Bonanza and Little House on the
Oh,
Prairie
there you go. Yeah.
and all that stuff. And, you know, I'm still a fan of all that. I watch Hell on Wheels and, like I said,
Okay.
Tombstone. I love Deadwood. And what I tried to do was try to capture that essence of Deadwood, if you've ever seen the series,
Yeah, yeah.
and put those into songs, you know. And it's like, so people can close their eyes and go wherever their imagination takes them. I don't tell too much of the story.
Sure.
I tell just enough for you to have your headphones on and go where you need to go, just like the old days when we didn't have videos.
Yeah, yeah, and the great thing about these videos you're putting out is, I mean, your songwriting really kind of shines because these are great songs. They're not your typical songs, like you said. I love the fact that the current one's not, the Devil You Know is not even a song on the album. It's like I just throw an extra tune out there for the
Y-
fans,
Yeah,
you know. And the songwriting is really kind of strong. What's interesting, it's not your typical music video where you're front and center, you're the front man, you're in all the scenes. Um, it's the music that's kind of highlighted your music. It's this great animation. People just got to see it to know what I'm talking about, but you're not
yeah,
even really featured in the video, and yet your music is front and center.
yeah. Well, what people really need to start digging in as soon as, you know, when when more of these are out, it winds up being something like 18 minutes total when it all runs together. And
Yeah.
it's fun to watch if you've got that time, you know, or
Bob,
I
this
should,
just popped in my head. You should once you get every single video completed, you should seriously like premiere that on YouTube, like you know the completed video.
oh, it's going to be, that's all done. That'll be the final of all the final things.
Yeah.
So it's the Demon Desperado is next. And then the sheriff locks up the preacher, he catches him. And so he breaks out and steals the sheriff's horse and heads to Mexico. And that's the next song. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. And
it's
Bobby,
cool.
for anybody that doesn't know, I
It's
think it's
extremely violent.
I think it's so cool that you being a huge Kiss fan like me growing up, and then you just happen to have the guy that used to be Gene Simmons' publicist working with you now.
Yeah, isn't that nice? You
Yeah, yeah,
know, he
yeah.
handled Kiss for 30 years.
And
So,
he's worked. He's got a lot. He's given me a lot of great interviews over here. That's how I first hooked up with you. And I bring this up because he's one of these guys that he's really good at what he does. Michael Brandville, I'm talking about. I bring it up because not only does he give me a lot of great interviews over years, but he's worked with everybody from Kiss to Britney Spears, and that to me just shows you kind of the
yeah,
quality of people you have working with you. Behind the
yeah.
scenes. Yeah.
Billy Idol to Alan Jackson, you
Yeah.
know, to even the old band I was in, Hairball. He helped
Wow.
launch us a little bit. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and plus he's a local boy. He's from Minneapolis.
oh,
So
okay, there you go. Yeah, I always love watching his. I don't know if you've ever caught his podcast, Three Sides of the Coin. But what I love about it, being a Kiss fan myself, that they've done like over 1,000 episodes just talking about anything Kiss related every week.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I catch it. And Tommy Summers, he lives here in town, and
yeah.
so I just watched Kiss Meets the Phantom again this morning.
Oh,
I
that's
was having
another
my
cult classic I love. Well, I have to have you. In fact, Bobby, maybe that's what we'll do. Is I was talking with you about. I have a pop culture show called JRock's Pop Culture Revolution, and I would love to have you on that show to do an episode talking about Kiss Meets the Fan. So if you're ever up for that, um,
yeah.
I'd love to have you on for that. Now, before we wrap up the show today, two more things I'd like to ask you about. You also shared with me you're getting ready, I think, tonight actually to launch another tour. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, the tour for the Back to the Bar and Grill tour starts tonight in Hudson, Wisconsin. And we have booked, well, we're playing some arenas and stuff, not arenas, but some amphitheaters and what have you. But we specifically went out and booked bar and grills
Oh, okay.
so that we could really get close to the fans because as you know, ticket prices are crazy, right?
Sure.
So a lot of people go to their local bar and grill because there's either no cover or it's a cheap cover because they can't afford 20 bucks or 50. And so I was like, well, why not just go to them? Why not just bring the music to the people and not really worry about okay, because it's the promoter making those prices anyway.
Sure,
The
sure.
the bands the bands will say, okay, well, we'll do the show for X, and then the promoter is selling tickets for 40, 50 bucks a piece, and then charging 100 for a VIP, and the band doesn't get any of that
Yeah,
because
well,
they agreed to 2,500 bucks or something.
yeah.
So this guy walks out with $80,000 or whatever it is, and I thought that isn't fair. And you see Kid Rock and Brett Michaels and everybody talking about ticket prices being crazy. And I thought, well,
Let's do something
it,
about it.
yeah, well, yeah. Instead of talking about it, you really just have to do something. And what they're not doing is bringing the music to the bar and grill and to the biker rallies and to the things like when we grew up. And it's
Wow, wow. Yeah,
so we're hitting a shit ton of shit holes.
yeah. Well, I'd like to thank you, Bob, for coming on again, and we will definitely have you on the show probably in about 2 weeks to talk about the final, the latest installment that's rolling out on Monday, as
Yeah,
you said. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you because I was asking before we, started doing the interview today. Sadly, Ross the Boss, from many people know from Manowar and Death Dealer and Ross the Boss Band. He recently announced that he was suffering from Lou Gehrig's disease, passed away just yesterday. And
yeah.
do you want to talk? If you were all a fan of his music at all?
Well, I was a super fan of Manowar, especially in the very beginning when I got into my first band. We were playing All Men Play on 10 and Blow Your Speakers.
Uh,
So, there is that influence in there too, because I believe that everything you do stays with you.
and
So,
I think Manowar, it's not a surprise that you'd be influenced by a band like that. I mean, very much like Kiss, very different type of band, theatrical, over the top. So, I mean, if you ever got the chance to see Manowar live or even a video, it's so over the top, you'll never forget it.
yeah, and that's what I loved about the bands at that time. Kiss was kind of in the mud at that time. They were between taking makeup off and deciding who or what they were going to be.
Yeah,
And band like Wasp showed up, and I went, yes, here's my new Kiss. And then, oh, here's Manowar, here's my new Kiss. And it was like, okay, I I get it. you know, and the songs might not always be the greatest, but it's that I'm just going to call it the musical and visual environment was so cool and so fun
yeah.
that
I don't know
we,
if you remember, Bobby, back in the 1970s, that's what they used to refer to as sound and vision.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like, man, we just had such a great time. We were recording or not recording, but rehearsing in an old garage on the other side of Fridley, Minnesota at the railroad tracks. And man,
Yeah. Well,
great.
Bobby, thanks again for coming on the show. It's a blast talking. We have so much to talk about with you in the future. So we're going to have you back on, like I said, about 2 weeks, talk about the next video. And I'll love to hear how the tour's been going by that point, you know?
Right on. Well, let's get your friends and fans of your show to follow the band Bobby Jensen and the Dead Cowboys, and the website's bobbyjensenusa.com.
We will put that up there. Thanks again, Bobby. Have a great rest of your weekend, okay?
Right on, man. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.